What is the good news that has created an explosive market? What bad news sort of lurks in the background? How am I trading this interesting situation? Hang on. This is not financial nor professional advice. This video is for entertainment only. Hey everyone, I'm Stephen Fox. I'm a retired psychologist who spends my time trading stocks nowadays. And I've been kind of a day trader during this uncertain time and the volatility of the market. But the volatility has come down, and stocks have made a noticeable swing to the positive side. And I'm morphing more into a swing trader and a long-term trader. You know, I made over around 210,000 while I was shorting, but then I ran into this week and I lost 60,000 of it. So I'm down to about 150,000, but that's okay. I knew this would happen simply because that's the way that it always ends, is that you can make money quickly, but then you get whipsawed around. And that's what happened the last 2 days on Wednesday and Thursday. So I'm no longer shorting, but I'm going to play probably the QQQ. And I'm going to get into it gradually according to the news. I might even dollar cost average into it. And I'm probably going to do some solar stocks too, just because they've been doing so well. There's a lot of good news coming at us that's unexpected. There's a plethora, as they say, of bad news. But I think that there was so much bad news that even having some good news is explosive good to the good for this stock market. It's sort of shocking that some things are starting to go right for the president. Congress recently passed a $50 billion semiconductor bill to promote domestic production of semiconductors so that we're not so reliant on foreign countries and we have to deal with these disturbed supply chains. So that's something very positive for the technology stocks. Also, Joe Manchin, who's the Democrat from West Virginia, a senator, he finally agreed to a climate change bill that he could live with because they agreed to cut the deficit to some degree. And there were some other things that made it easier for him to live with this clean energy bill. But this bill will promote the use of clean energy, which should help my solar stocks a lot. So I'm overjoyed at this good news that we're coming in on the political front, which is going to help the technology and the clean energy stocks. Also, it's surprising, but the new variant of the plague we've been living with for 3 years that has affected our health, that seems to be decreasing in severity. It's no longer as deadly as it used to be. The new variants are less deadly than the previous variants. And that's usually the course that these sorts of things take, that these things that are affecting our health, they learn to live with us and we learn to live with them. They enter a phase where you get a shot a year to prevent it from returning if you want to go that route. But it's something that can be dealt with, and especially that it's less deadly, it makes it more livable. We got the second quarter gross domestic product news. the GDP, the gross domestic product for the second quarter, was decreased by 0.9%, almost 1%, not quite 1%, 0.9%, which interestingly turned out to be good news because they were expecting it to be so much worse. So officially, we are in a mild recession right now. Okay. Now, whether that's going to get worse, we don't know. It's beginning to look, and this is another major part of the good news, that what the Fed is doing could possibly work. You know, when they announced that they were increasing interest rates by 0.75%, that was seen as it was going to be bad news, but actually it was a little bit of good news because they were worried that he was going to increase it a full percentage point. Okay, and so you get this expectations game, but it came in at 0.75, which was just right, not too much, not too little. And it looks like the Fed is serious about inflation without being overly hawkish. In the press conference afterwards, I think they were relieved that he wasn't more hawkish. He said a 0.75 is possible during the next meeting, but he refused to give any guidance because he said it's going to be completely driven by the data on inflation. So it's possible that what the Fed is doing is working. One sign of this, and something that's very interesting to me, is that the 10-year bond yield rates have gone down. They've gone down to 2.68. Okay. The 2-year yield is like 3% or more. Okay. And so it's inverted. But the bond market is saying that the economy is going to crash to some extent, and that they won't be able to keep increasing the interest rates that much. So it has that effect by the long-term bond yield going down. It has that effect of saying, hey, these interest rates aren't going to be increased as much as we fear they might. And what they are already doing, there's signs that it's taking effect, that it's having a positive effect. Commodities, notably oil, things like lumber, things like copper, and some of the grains have started to come down significantly. And so you would think that would lessen inflation. But they are watching, they have no choice but to go month to month. And I think Wall Street was thrilled to hear he had no set plan on how to increase interest rates, and actually was going to yield to the data, that he would do what the data said, which means that he could modify it. And in any case, he probably won't increase it, if he's going to increase it, until September. And even then, in September, if it's 0.5 or less, that'll probably be seen as bullish. Oh, he did increase it 0.75. We're so happy it's less than what we feared. And then we have this 2-month period where things are kind of free to run for a while. Like I say, the effect of this good news has been dramatic because there's been such wealth, if you want to call it that, of bad news. For instance, the bank Goldman Sachs reported a 30% decline in revenues. Walmart pre-warned that they are not doing well, that they probably will have to lower prices because they're having a buildup of inventory. They actually changed their guidance and said there was a noticeable lack of demand. And then there's Best Buy, who reported that their sales have decreased by 13%. I mean, and it just goes on and on like this. So to have some good news, it's like maybe this is over. Maybe it's at least starting to be over. And we will know by September. And I think what the Fed decides in September will be dramatic in indicating whether we are out of the woods. If it's 0.5 or less, if they would do 0.25 or not do anything and just leave it alone, that would be so bullish for the market. This last week was one of the most dramatic earnings weeks I've ever experienced. On a Tuesday, Alphabet, which is Google, and Microsoft reported earnings. Both of them missed on earnings. Google, which is Alphabet, also missed on revenue. So, but when you looked at how much they missed by, they were close. So it was, they almost hit their target, okay? And I think people were expecting, again, much worse earnings from them. And the fact that their forward guidance was mostly good. Microsoft missed on its cloud business, which was negative. I mean, there was plenty of negative in both reports, but it wasn't as bad as they thought it would be. And so you get this expectations effect. And that on Wednesday, both of them went up. Okay, and that was the beginning of the explosions on Wednesday and Thursday. And we're going to see if it carries through on Friday. I'm filming this on Thursday night, so we shall see. But the rest of the week just continued to be as dramatic. On Wednesday, I think Meta missed on everything, pretty much. And I don't think Wall Street is thrilled with the metaverse, simply because they see Zuckerberg throwing a lot of money into the metaverse, and it's not paying off yet, of course. Meta, which was Facebook in a previous life, for the first time missed their sales estimates for the first time ever for a quarter. So Meta is not Facebook, and I'm starting to call it Meta all the time, simply because Facebook really is just a part of its many platforms. Thursday was the most dramatic day. Apple and Amazon both saved the market. Amazon came in with results that beat estimates on both revenue and earnings, and was surprisingly positive. Apple just barely beat the estimates of revenue and earnings. But I think they were expecting less from Apple, simply because they knew Apple would be affected more by currency fluctuations. The strong dollar leads to them having currency fluctuations in their profits. And also, they would have more supply chain problems, because a lot of their business is selling items and iPhones to other countries. And their iPhone sales were especially strong, which was very relieving. So Amazon and Apple, once again, I will say, saved the day and was a relief for this market. And I was referring to this as a relief rally, and it looks like it's morphing into a real rally, at least for the next month. We will see what happens in September. I think what happens with inflation and with what the Fed does with interest rates in September is going to be all important. But we got a little bit of a break here now. The next big news will be the August inflation data. And so that'll be the next big one. But the really big one will be September's data on inflation and on interest rates. My favorite solar stocks right now are the ETF RAYS, RAYS. It's a global solar fund that I think benefits from the strong dollar, because it costs less for United States citizens to buy solar panels from it. And also Canadian solar benefits in a similar way, that it is cheaper for United States citizens to buy Canadian solar panels because of the currencies. The currency fluctuations, I want to call it. We get more when we buy from foreign countries. It's cheaper for us to buy from them, but it's more expensive for them to buy from us. So it's likely that Americans will buy more foreign solar panels because they'll be cheaper. I'm showing you the 1 month chart of the global solar ray, the Global Solar Ray Fund, RAYS, RAYS. And I'm showing it to you just so you can see how it's popped higher recently. And I think the promotion of clean energy probably has something to do with it. My favorite solar stock is Canadian Solar, CSIQ. And I guess it's the IQ is showing that you're smart enough to buy the stock. So it has a forward price to earnings of 11, and it has an outstanding earnings growth rate of 26%. So I think this stock will benefit from the currency differences. And I think it's a solid thing. And I like solar stocks because they're solving a problem. We need something to replace the expensive energy that we're having to deal with now. I'm showing you the 5-day chart on the QQQ, which is the 100 largest companies on the NASDAQ, which are arguably the best companies in the world. It's all the companies we've been talking about: Google, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. These are mostly the major technology stocks, although there's other companies thrown in there. But it's mostly technology, and it's mostly where the growth's going to be. But we want to make sure that it's going to stay in there, that it's going to keep on a growth path. It had a dramatic turnaround in the middle of this week, but we have to see it follow through on Friday and probably Monday before we fully trust it. But if it holds up, I plan to start investing in dollar cost averaging into it, figuring that I'm buying somewhere in the crash, and maybe the bottom is behind us. But even if it's ahead of us a little bit, I will be getting stocks probably at a lower price than if I wait too far into the future. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the like button if you've gotten anything out of this. We're going to need the luck. We always need the luck. I'm hoping to rely less on luck and chart patterns and more solid investing advice, which hasn't really been possible during this downturn just because it's been so wild and so dependent on any news that comes over the news wire. And I want to return to a normal stock market, and I think the way to do that is to start gradually getting into QQQ. And I love the solar stocks, so I will play around with those and see if I can get a good buy on those. And that's the way it is. That's the way I roll. Thank you.